What's up, guys? Welcome to Ask Shane B, where we're diving into all your questions about worship leading. I'm Jeremy Jakewood, joined here, as always, by Shane Barnard from Shane and Shane.
Howdy, guys.
What's up, man?
Hey, man.
We're getting into a good one today. We're talking about our good friend, or maybe not so good friend, depending on how you see it, the click track.
The old metronome.
Old metronome. So hopefully we'll help you identify if it's a friend or foe to you. Hopefully it's a friend. I think it's a friend.
It has a lot of potential to be a friend today.
Yeah. All right, so this email is from Todd. He's got a really great question. He says, Shane, you along with many others have convinced me that click tracks are the way to go. Since going in that direction, I have greatly enjoyed the unity and excellence it helps bring to our band. However, I am now finding myself in a place of, quote, bondage when songs are already outlined by the click and cue. How can we utilize click and cues and maintain freedom in our songs with the band and a worship leader who have become dependent on what's in our ear rather than who's in our heart? Answer 2, 3, 4. That's how he ended this email. I think it's so good.
It was great.
Way to go, Todd.
Especially if you're a drummer, you really like that.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Man, thank you so much for sending us that, Todd. We get it. I think I understand where you're coming from. I remember when I adopted the click track, and I'm trying to like put myself in your shoes in that place. And so hopefully in this podcast, we can help loosen the chains that are binding you. And because I don't think that you have to be dependent on the click track in a way that puts chains around what you do. I think that it is possible to still see the click track as a blessing, a tool to provide almost in a completely different direction, just to provide freedom, and that's what it's become for me. And I have a couple tricks. Not really tricks. It's actually pretty obvious of things to do that I've done to create a little bit of that freedom. Because what I think you're saying is that, man, we used to not really play together, but we did have these moments where I could just pray in the middle of a down bridge, or we could sing it again, and now it just, maybe after weeks or months or even years of that, it's just like we're just kind of cranking through songs. Here's the song, here's the intro, here's the outro, here's the next song, and you just feel like, oh, now it just feels canned, and I don't think it has to feel like that. I am a huge fan of music and production and how things fit together and all of that, and so that's what I love about the click track, is that it's really done that for our band and our rehearsals. And we have many different people who play in those bands and in those rehearsals, of just providing the structure for people to fit their art and their gift in. And that structure is just a bed to lay in, that nobody's second guessing it. Oftentimes we just have a click track, no cues. So we're just playing to a metronome, and so we talk through how we're going to get in and get out, and that's another podcast of how to do that, or how we do that. But just as far as playing to a metronome, playing to a click track, there's all kinds of times, whether it's like, man, you are all firing, you're all hammering quarter notes in a chorus, and what that does to those quarter notes and how God uses that is a very tangible thing. And then there's times where there's this down section, and I don't have to now keep time in the down section, or some random hi-hat doesn't have to psh, 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 to try to keep time. But the click track is just there. So all of a sudden there's this like huge whole note. It's lasting 4 bars and nothing's happening. There's just a little tiny bit of noise and pad. But everybody on the band, everybody knows exactly where they are. Nobody's stressing out. I can take a deep breath, and if you take out the cue factor, you can go wherever you want to in that moment, according to that tempo, obviously. And so for us, when we're not playing with tracks, which I would say probably 75% of the time we're not playing with tracks these days. we're kind of weaning them in as we feel like it serves songs. But I'm right there with you on the freedom thing. So, I mean, the tracks take it to a whole new level as far as being locked in to the song. But for me, doing what I do as a worship leader, I feel like has been blessed greatly because I feel like I have to do so much less and I can just sit there. And man, when you guys play together in time, it is just powerful. I have thoughts every time we play together with a band and everybody's hitting together. Granted, often, I would say most of every time, I'm like, lay it back a little bit, guys. Or, come on, electric player, come on, keys player, like lay it back, bring it back. It took me a long time to just play in time. And I'm not great at it. I'm just better 15, 20 years after playing with a click track, but I'm still, trying to do that. And so for me, it's been a blessing. And I would just say quickly, a couple things that you can do that might help loose the chains a little bit is one, just have a cue to start the song. That could be one really simple thing.
Not having cues for every section of the song, especially if you're not using a track. Yeah.
Just in case, there is moments in most of every song that we do that everything comes down, and you as a worship leader at that moment could go 2 or 3 different directions, and everybody would be right there with you because it would be obvious. That's just one thing you could do. Another thing that I do is if I want to bail on the click, I just have a language that the band knows. And so, or the person carrying the metronome. And so I'll put my hand, if it's a down section, I can put my hand down with a little fist. But most of the time, I just start slowing down in a way that tells Jeremy, I'm no longer gonna go with you here. I'm going on my own. This is a whole new metronome system here, and it's really obvious. So within a bar or two. No, the problem with that is this chaos there for a couple seconds because, but nobody hears the click track, obviously, out in the room. So we all just know like, oh, okay, I'm deciding to go a different direction, and it's perfectly okay. And we sometimes go a different direction. We slow down the bridge, and it becomes kind of sulky, and then I just speed it back up, and I just let them know by my energy and where I'm going that, hey, we're gonna re-engage, and then hey, we're right back where we left off, and that click comes back in, and that that may take you a few times, but like that happens a lot in what we do. And so those are just a couple things that I do. When I come into a rehearsal, I'm not talking about. We don't spend a lot of time actually rehearsing our parts. Hopefully, we've all come in. My expectation as a worship leader is that we've come in having rehearsed our parts. So everybody kind of has a really great idea. Granted, some of these folks like Jeremy can do that in their head as they're walking there, but everybody knows what they're going to do. Nobody needs to like practice the groove or practice the lead line, or I don't need to practice my strumming pattern. Everybody's coming in. So what we spend time on is how we get into the song, how we get out of the song. What if I do choose to bail on this moment? What will that look like? Or I'm probably going to pray here, and I don't know how long I'm going to pray, and I might go into the chorus, and I don't know what's that going to look like. And we just have a little bit of a system there and a language around, building in those times of freedom as much as you can in 18 to 21 minutes, and so I have developed a love. Also, this might help bring some freedom to that, to just the do it againness of playing songs and hymns and spiritual songs with gratefulness in your heart over and over and over and over and over. And we're going to do 10,000 Reasons this week. And this is 2019, if you're just tuning in. And we're going to do In Christ Alone again. And we're going to play it the same way again. But there has been something that, I'm 43 years old, and it's becoming beautiful to me that we just play it the same way. We sing it the same way. But the Spirit of God in that, it's like it is so rich and what happens is Colossians 3:16, that the word of Christ dwells richly in us as we teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through singing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratefulness to God in our hearts. And so that begins to happen. And it's like, I feel like there is something in us that wants to be overly creative, overly profound, overly spiritual feeling. And it's okay to pursue creative, profound, and spiritual. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to pursue. I'm just saying there's also some beauty in we're still singing. And it sounds a lot like it did 8 years ago. And so that's been a help to me of just seeing the truth of the gospel is the power to save. It's not a certain rendition. It's not the freshness of music. It's not, it's okay that we just have 18 to 22 minutes. And what God does in those 18 to 22 minutes is miraculous. And I don't have to depend on, something to conjure that moment up for folks, but rather just provide the structure, not just for the band, but for our folks to talk to God, to pray these things to God, to beg him for things, to tell him who he is, and then just trust the Lord and the Spirit of God to do what he does. And so there is a little bit of like loosening my grip on, even though I love production, I would say, I'm distracted by production so much. I love it. I love freedom. I don't want to be locked in. So I know what you're saying. I like that, but I do think there's a little bit of like surrendering some of that to serve the folks. I've come a long way in like song choice, and I used to want to play more of my songs, and it's just like I'll play it if it serves them the best, but just if I feel like for the language of what we need to just remember this aspect of who God is in the face of Jesus Christ, then this is the song we're going to play, and we're going to nail it. And a click track is really going to help us nail it so that we're not a distraction, and we can just play it for him. So there's a couple thoughts that I had.
It's great. It's really good. I think that the overarching principle of a click track in the context of leading worship is to see it as a tool, as a resource for what you are accomplishing in that moment with that group of people.
Yeah.
And you kind of have the choice. Like you have the choice to be dependent on it or dependent on the Lord. And it's all in how you see it and what lens you see all of the tools, your instruments, the click track, anything, that are at your disposal in leading that group of people. And so anyways, I think that was really great, really helpful.
And I think it's always you're asking a really great question. Of here's our tools. We got a metronome from 1987 sitting on a little table. We got a drummer. Don't.
For those of you who don't know, that's a shot at the metronome that I use because he doesn't like how it sounds. He won't drop it.
And sometimes
I refuse to go buy it.
Sometimes the batteries go out.
I show up and the batteries are gone.
And so we have a drummer, we have a bass player, we have an electric player, we have a harmony singer, we have an acoustic guitar, we have keys, we have subwoofers, we have a smoke machine, we have really big screens. And I think just asking the question, is this serving our body? And I could see a scenario where maybe the body was served better before the click track. And I'm saying, I think we should always be bringing these tools and going, is this making people see him more? Or is it not? And so in my experience, it has taken distractions and just tightened the tightened up the chance for somebody to be distracted. It's like the gap has been closed a lot.
Yeah.
To where like maybe there was a lot more distraction in that distraction being an acoustic hit and a snare hit happening like, just a quarter of a second apart a lot, or the distraction of, the click track and how we transition from song to song is huge. And so like often when I'm thinking of those minutes that we have as a worship set, I'm thinking of it as one song and then just different movements of one song. And so like the click track as like back in the day, you're just like 1, 2, 3. It's just that's just for distracted people who come in tired and check their kid into. The click track for us has become a really great tool to just take those minutes we have and be the best steward of those minutes that we can. And I feel like we've already convinced Todd of that, and so we're trying to convince other people that that's just a really helpful tool. And for the Todds of the world I feel like I have been there, where you feel locked in and you feel like you're just kind of going through motions, playing songs. Your freedom has kind of gone away. I think you can just like start having those conversations where you use the click track to your advantage in these moments and you don't in these moments, and just develop a language where you can walk forward in that. And that is so possible. You can do both, and both are really good. And so I hope that's helpful.
I think that's great. It's helpful to me, even just to talk about it again. It's always awesome to like you said, evaluate what we're using and see how useful it really is being to the group of people that we're leading. So that's good stuff. Y'all, thanks for joining us today. As always, you can send your questions in to AskShaneB@worshipinitiative.com. Thanks for being with us. We love you. We're praying for you. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.